everything collapsed. All my defenses, my arrogance, my selfishness, the sense of injustice, the sense of failure. And not only did I carry within me a sense of injustice and a sense of failure, I increased the intensity. There was a reality that I failed, man. I blew it. Big time, big time blew it. But then I make that failure worse than it actually is by keeping it inside and becoming reactive. And that sense of injustice, okay? I witnessed my mom die. Oh, my mom died in my arms. I won the pity of my therapy group by repeating over and over to them that my mom died in my arms. She didn't. She died in front of me. I was holding her hand when she died, but she didn't die in my arms. My mom died in front of me whilst I was holding her hand. And all of a sudden, when her life left her, I let go of her hand. It wasn't her hand anymore, which is bad enough in and of itself for a 17-year-old kid. Ridiculous trauma levels for a 17-year-old boy. By the time I get to the end of my 14-year of heroin, alcohol, amphetamine, cannabis, substance dependency, and I go into a treatment environment, I awfulize the catastrophe. My mom died in my arms. She didn't. I got a little bit true that she died in front of me, but I had to awfulize it. And as I look back, the more I deflected, the more I added to my story, or the more I took away from the details of my story. It was an avoidance tactic. I didn't want to get real about it and just embrace it as it was, because I don't want to depressed. Depression is a sign of weakness. Depression was the best thing that happened to me. When I got depressed, I stayed clean and sober. In fact, I stayed clean and sober because my mom died in front of me. I stayed clean and sober because I had the potential to be depressed. I stayed clean and sober. All the reasons I used to booze and lose on the 17th of June, from the 17th of June forward, I used those circumstances and events and consequences as a reason for not returning to the substance abuse. I used the death of my mom to become a heroin addict. I think it was about 17 years after the funeral, I actually cried for my loss. And that was life in the valley of addiction. Those were the dynamics, the spiritual, psychological, emotional, relational dynamics that took me into and kept me locked in to the valley of addiction, believing the lie, because I'm the self-deceived one, that depression is a sign of weakness. Depression is a sign of strength. Depression is a sign of integrity. You know, if I've got depression and I respect it, and maybe even go on to a course of antidepressants so that I can deal with the stuff that led me to the depression, in an honest window of reflection, I can start to make correction, and life just gets lighter and brighter. And today, 28 years clean and sober. We're in March, aren't we? It'll be 28 years to the day in June the 17th, round about, I don't know, about 8 o'clock at night. I wasn't watching the clock. That's the valley of addiction. That's the process of decay. And I've introduced you to the process of freedom from the decay. Okay? There is a way out of that valley of addiction. My name's... Okay, guys, that's the valley of addiction. Those are the spiritual, psychological, relational. These are the feelings. These are the beliefs, feelings, attitudes, and behaviors. This is the whole mishmash of what makes up. This is the skeleton of the young lady, the young gentleman who turned into an intravenous heroin addict. That's how it started. That's why it wouldn't stop. And that's how they got out. All right, what I'm going to look forward to now is our analysis of this presentation. I'm expecting you guys to improve on this presentation, but I think we need to spend some honest time, some honest reflection on where we are and how we can communicate these spiritual, psychological, and relational truths to the wounded people back home.